And it was the first time that I had ever heard in all of my Christian walk that God does not mean for us to live overwhelmed, overloaded, stressed out lives. I began to teach about this, and people, you could just see this visible. Oh, really? That's possible? You know, it was exciting. It was exciting to be, encouraging people that were stressed out and overloaded. And what we didn't realize was how important those lessons would be when the real storm came. It began back in probably the early 1990s, right around 1990, 91. And I was in that early stage of adulthood and trying to figure out life in general. My brother and I had 4 different businesses that we owned and ran, 2 in Richmond and 2 outside of Richmond. We were also in the very beginning stages of having kids. And my real passion is teaching. And so as part of that, I taught an adult Sunday school class for probably 20 years, but I was in the midst of teaching this large adult Sunday school class while I was also an elder in the church, while I was also co-leading a pastor search committee, while I was also heading up the Christian education committee, and I was just running so hard and fast, and they were all good things. But yet I became more and more aware that when I would go home, the external face and all of the excitement and adrenaline of the day, I would just be exhausted and that I was miserable. And I just thought, if I was going hard after God, doing good things, how could it be bad? That's when I ran across Richard Swenson's book, Margin. And it was the first time that I had ever heard in all of my Christian walk that God does not mean for us to live overwhelmed, overloaded, stressed out lives. And so we began what was a decades-long journey of creating space in our life. And it began with a simple beginning to practice the Sabbath, which was so counterintuitive. If we couldn't get everything done in 7 days, how were we going to do it in 6 days? But we said, this is what God says to do, so we're going to do that. I began to teach about this, and people, you could just see this visible. Oh, really? That's possible? And it was exciting. It was exciting to be encouraging people that were stressed out and overloaded. And what we didn't realize was how important those lessons would be when the real storm came. And the real storm came in the form of my daughter being diagnosed with stage 4 kidney cancer as a sophomore in college. It was just like a hammer to our entire family. And in a matter of one telephone conversation, all of life got turned upside down. And the lessons that my wife, Weezy, and I had learned over those preceding decades was what really enabled us to survive a parent's worst nightmare. I had backed way off of work as a means to create space to be able to help her and the rest of our family. And when she died, I then had this large vacuum of time. And I realized that so many people are trying to get through life with the best of circumstances and are still overwhelmed and overloaded. And that all it takes is that small crack in the veneer and everything falls apart. And I felt like this was the time and that I needed to write this and teach this and talk about this space, which is so critical to walking well in life.